Louisiana beer reviews, James Foxe, Canadian whiskey. Well, you can search for some reviews of this on the internet. There may be a handful. I've not seen much about this at all. Did some research on it though. I found, I bought this at Broadway Liquor on the corner of Broadway and United States Highway 90, Claiborne Avenue, but US Highway 90, eastbound in New Orleans, Louisiana. I found that they had this by calling Sazerac. I asked them on the phone where do they have it. They told me what places carried it. I went over there. Sure enough, it's on the shelf. $8.99 a bottle. It's gone now. I noticed they had a limited supply and it was gone. But anyway, says right there, we love to hear from our customers. 1-866-729-3722. Sazerac Company, Sazerac.com. Or you can email them at foxe@sazerac.com. All right, anyway, it's a 1 liter bottle, $8.99, James Foxe. Canadian whiskey with natural flavors. Bottled by James Foxe Company, Frankfort, Kentucky. No such company, really. It's just an alias for Sazerac. Okay, what do we know about this? Not a whole lot. It was introduced in 1975 by Seagram's as a new Canadian whiskey for their line. I read a New York Times article from 1975 talking about the introduction of this. But they did a lot of promotional for it, didn't really catch on. So 14 years later, they sold this brand along with some others like Canadian Hunter, Seagram's Canadian Hunter, off to Sazerac. I was at International Market last month and they had a bottle of Seagram's Canadian Hunter on the shelf. I said, that's an old bottle. But anyway, if you look at the old 70s of the few and far between photos, they haven't changed the label in 45 years. So, looks like the 70s with earth tones, you know, brown, orange, gold. I liked the earth tones. The olive green, the brown, the sand, the orange, the sunflower yellow. I like the earth. I like nature, so it kind of fits with me. So never before had this. Let's check it out. Now, to say it's a Canadian whiskey with natural flavors doesn't mean much because pretty much all Canadian whiskeys have natural flavors added, which are generally things like, believe it or not, plum wine or other wines. They just have to be aged in small wood, they call it in Canada, wood barrels. They use bourbon, rum, brandy, brandy. And if they're exporting it and somebody asks for a certification, then they have to verify, the company, the distillers, Canadian distillers have to verify that it's no more than 9.99%, just a tad below 10% of flavoring, okay, but the rest is whiskey. Now that's if they ask for the certificate, but from what I was reading, apparently nobody ever asked for the certificate, so maybe it's higher than 9 point something percent, maybe not, I don't know. I guess you gotta smell them and taste them batch to batch, bottle to bottle, and try to figure out if it's got a high level of added natural ingredients or not. Do they have coloring added? Generally Scotch, Irish whiskey, Canadian blended whiskey, American blended whiskey, even American blended bourbon, which is a class of liquor, will have caramel color added to give it more color. Anyway, you can see it's amber, chestnut color, typical whiskey color, right? Brown liquor. Decent little alcohol legs. I don't even know if this thing's listed on Proof 66 or what's the other review website? Liquor.com. I have to check. I was wondering if it was going to smell like Canadian Limited or Rich and Rare or Canadian Hunter, which share a lot of similarities from Sazerac, but no, it doesn't really smell like those. They must have kept the original Seagram's recipe. Oh, and Frankfort, Kentucky, that's Buffalo Trace. So they do a lot of bottling at Buffalo Trace. But if you go on the tour, they're not going to show you James Foxe or various American blended whiskeys. They're going to focus on the bourbons over there, as you would expect. The straight bourbons. I'm trying to pin down the nose. There is some wood, just like wood, not charred oak, but just barrel wood. Corn, maize if you're in Europe, corn alcohol, you know, corn liquor, corn whiskey, I'm trying to say. How about rye? Yeah, I think there's a touch of rye spice, but just a touch in the nose. It isn't much. It's just like a corn, like a mellow corn, like a mellow, mild corn. Not a lot of these blended whiskeys will be sharp and rather off-putting, candy corn and well, some of these American blended whiskeys from Heaven Hill especially had that strange honeydew melon nose, which I can't figure out. The Canadian whiskeys, they never have that. They never have that honeydew melon. So far, it smells like a little nicer than Canadian Limited or Rich and Rare or even Canadian Hunter. Now, I'm not saying better than Canadian Hunter Rye. Now, I did buy 2 little bottles of Hunter Rye at Broadway Liquor. Would like to buy a liter or 750 of it. Hadn't seen it around. That's 90 proof Hunter Rye. It's a line extension of Canadian Hunter. Are there other Canadian Hunter variants that we're not aware of? There may be. I think there is. Some flavored one, maybe. You know, I mean, like flavored like apple or caramel or something. All right, so a nice, pleasant nose. Nothing harsh on the nose at all. So this is a good sign. Very good sign. Very good sign. Do I get this liquor in my parish? No. I've never seen it here. I've seen it in that store in New Orleans. Saw it at a store on Louisiana Highway 22 in Madisonville, Louisiana, right by the river. 1,750 milliliter bottle. But I've never seen it anywhere else. Retraction. They had the 375s on special at Discount Depot on US Highway 90 business route on the west bank of the river in Marrero, Louisiana. Okay, and I bought a bottle for my friend David. He tried it. He said, it's okay. I was surprised by that because he was giving it a lower mark than some of the other Canadian whiskeys like Rich and Rare. Reserve, well, Rich and Rare Reserve, so, okay. Let's see. Okay, it tastes like grain alcohol. You get 40% coming through, kind of sharp. Corn, like pulverized yellow corn, actually. Not corn grits. Corn grits is, well, it depends. The ones you buy at the store is hominy grits, generally. That's different than just pulverizing it. But this tastes like pulverized yellow corn. Cornstarch type thing that they distill into liquor. A little rye spice. So yeah, I don't know what the percentage is, but it seems a little higher than American. That makes sense, right? Canadian whiskey tends to be noted for its rye. Blending sherry could be like a little cream sherry, actually. Think of it along the lines of Taylor cream sherry from Canandaigua, New York. Rum. Wouldn't be totally shocked if they didn't have some Sazerac sourced gold rum. Be inexpensive gold rum from the Caribbean, West Indies. Now these are made by what they call Sazerac Canada. It's operations in Canada. I don't think they only use their own distillery. I think they lease out and contract with the other big distilleries up there. These companies do a lot of cooperation. Okay, trading, whatever. The mouthfeel's just typical medium. The finish is like medium long. It doesn't drop right off. It doesn't linger around like some of them. Sometimes that can be bad, like it's disgusting and it lingers around and you say, ugh. But sometimes it's very, very pleasant and you want it to hang around. Like you want that residual feeling. This is just all moderate. I guess the price is below average, but the aroma, the flavor, the mouthfeel, the harshness or a lack of harshness, the finish is all moderate. So if you like a moderate product that's not too flashy, but not just drab and dull, you might like James Foxe, who, according to the newspaper article, the New York Times article from 1975, was some obscure Canadian government official that people in Canada don't even know of. But I think a lot of these companies will find some obscure name and use it. And then they say, that's a real person. Well, whatever the case, doesn't matter. How would I score this? Well, I think I'd be inclined to give it a pretty good score, actually. It just tastes like a nice bread and butter, you know what I mean? Matter-of-fact Canadian whiskey. And I think that's their approach. The bottle's plain in a way, just standard. Everything's standard. And Sazerac's saying we just want it standard, reliable, straightforward. And I think it's doing that. Very similar to Canadian Hunter, which has a lot of those attributes as well. So score, I think 90 would be a good score. A minus. People might say, oh, A minus with all these high scores for whiskey. Well, I think generally with Canadian, let's stick to Canadian. American blended whiskey can be a lot trickier. But the Canadian whiskey seem to start out at a pretty high level anyway. Like they're starting high, well, whatever the brand, generally, and then it just climbs. Now, there's a big difference between 90 and 99 and 100, all right? So that gives you a pretty good amount of wiggle room in that 10% range, right? A lot of these are hitting 90 and they just can't get above it, 90, 91. They're just there. Then you start spending a lot more money per ounce, or in the Commonwealth countries per milliliter, I guess. You're going to see them climbing, 95, 96, 97. Now you get one that's a 98 out of 100. It's going to be so much better than a 90 that it's just a different world. And it's the same with beer. A lot of beers that hit 90, no problem. No problem, man. But to get to 99, it's just, it doesn't usually happen unless you're putting out big money, you know, for the products. So would I recommend this? I certainly would recommend it. So Laissez-les Bon Ton Relais, a very impressive, in fact, Canadian blended whiskey. I'm so glad I bought it. I've been chomping at the bit to try it for 2 years. And I'm going to end this review by saying, y'all come on down to southeastern Louisiana. I have some bonus cover. I was trying to speak too fast. Bonus coverage now. I'm trying to make it all one word. Upcoming products. After I do the James Foxe, I'm going to do the Scotch, blended Scotch. Yeah, I do intend to do single malt Scotch. I have done some on my channel, but that was ones that David brought or that Johnny Neely had. I'm not opposed to it, of course. I just haven't gotten around to it. Here's one I want to do next. It's Johnny Walker Blue Label Blended Scotch Whiskey. Apparently hit the market in 1992. Royal warrant for this. So there it is in a fancy box. It's like a perfumed box. And then you open up the box. And then you got the whiskey in there. Yeah, fancy, huh? Better be good considering the price. We'll talk about, it's got a magnet, closes with a magnet. Like, listen. Better be good. We'll talk about the price in the review. Holy moly. Baby. Next, bourbon I have lined up. These are getting dusty. I do plan to dust bottles this upcoming month, so has to be done. Takes a long time, but get that feather duster out. Then once a year I'll take a towel and clean them. Cooper's Craft. Been on the market since around, I can't remember. I looked up the trademark research. I think 2017. So it's kind of new. It's from Brown-Forman, makers of Old Forester and Jack Daniels. Got a great deal on that. We'll talk about that price later. Got a very unusually low price. Sunnybrook, next American blended whiskey. Sunnybrook, Kentucky blended whiskey. Been on the market since 1891. They used to make a straight bourbon. I don't think there is a Sunnybrook straight bourbon anymore. But then as soon as you say it, you'll go in a store and be saying, oh, look, a bottled and bond version, a straight bourbon or whatever. So you can't ever discount that. Frankfort, Kentucky, and Claremont, Kentucky. You know, that's Beam Centauri. They used to have this on their website, Beam website. Took a lot of their inexpensive products down. But there's there used to be a big push with this product about the government inspecting it. And so there's like a U.S. government inspector on the label. So that's what they say. Don't buy that flim-flam stuff. Buy a real whiskey. Sunnybrook. But the company didn't make it. Well, they made it. They did make it. I was reading the article. The man who started it, his grandchildren couldn't decide what to do with it. And they were fighting. There was even a newspaper article about it, some other state. They were fighting about it and couldn't agree, so they sold it. They just cashed out, sold it to Beam. They said, oh, well, we'll take over. All right, so fascinating. The history is usually more fascinating than the actual product when you get down to these drinks. So anyway, that's it.